What do you actually want from a D&D game? Do you even know? Because if you don't, you're gonna keep ending up in D&D games that aren't right for you. A lot of people say stuff like, oh, I prefer a mix of roleplay and combat. And I'm sorry, but that's meaningless. Every D&D game is a mix of roleplay and combat. That's like saying, I like the kinds of movies where there's scenes and characters. Okay, cool. You're gonna love Citizen Kane and also Boss Baby 2 Family Business. People love to divide D&D into combat and roleplay, but these divisions are way too broad to be useful. There are so many different ways to enjoy both roleplay and combat, and a great DM brings their players' varied interests together. But if you don't know what you're looking for, then it's no wonder you're not getting the kind of game you want. You're basically agreeing to go to a movie night before knowing that you're watching The Godfather. I mean, it's fine, but it's no Paddington 2. You won't get the kinds of games you're looking for until you learn to identify and communicate what you want. So let's go full BuzzFeed quiz and figure out what kind of D&D player you are. Oh, gosh, how did that get there? I just launched pre-orders for my limited edition 2025 calendar this week. It must have gone out of my shirt somehow. I'll just go change real quick. There's actually a great tool for this in the Dungeon Master's Guide, a comprehensive list of the most common player types and tips for DMs to engage them. The 2024 DMG even introduced a new 8th player type. But most players haven't read the DMG, and I think this list could be very helpful to them. Now, it's not quite accurate to call these types of players because most of us enjoy more than one of these elements of the game. It's less about picking one and more about compiling your personal list. If this is D&D astrology, then you're not just a Capricorn, you gotta know your rising Mercury Gatorade, or whatever. Okay, let's get into it. First up, we have the actor, aka the theater kid, the wannabe Critical Role cast member. I'm allowed to make fun of this group because I'm one of them. These are players who love bringing their characters to life at the table, taking on their personality, using a certain accent or voice, and maybe even doing things like dressing up as their character. Can you imagine? Dressing up as your D&D character? What kind of no-life nerd would ever do? Oh my god, have you ever heard of knocking? Can't get any privacy around here. Anyway, here are a few signs that you might be this type of player. You've developed a unique personality for your D&D character, with their own habits and motivations. When you play, you try to step into your character's shoes and think about how they would react, instead of reacting like a person playing a game. It's easy to tell when you're speaking in character because you use a certain voice or manner of speaking that's distinct from your natural one. You enjoy role-playing in-depth conversations and interactions with NPCs and your fellow party members. You're the type to ask what the shopkeeper's name is and hold an in-character conversation about their wares, instead of just asking the DM what's for sale and how much. During combat, you might add narrative descriptions to your attacks and actions. Instead of just saying, I take 2 longsword attacks, maybe you'll describe your character's emotions or fighting techniques, or throw in a dramatic one-liner. These players usually thrive in parties that contain other actors, and there tends to be a lot of crossover with the storyteller type. It can also be very frustrating for players who don't enjoy the acting component of games to share a table with these people. Players who are eager to get things done, like instigators, can easily become frustrated at sitting through yet another 45-minute conversation with a passing NPC. Apologies to my husband. Next up, we have the explorer. This is the player who wants to know what's behind every door, under every rock, and in the pocket of every random goblin. Explorers are here to soak in the game setting, to wander off the beaten path, and to unearth secrets that probably didn't exist until they rolled so high on that check. So how do you know if you're an explorer? Well, see if any of this sounds familiar. You've probably rolled investigation more times than the rogue has rolled stealth. If the DM mentions a dusty old bookshelf, you want to know the titles of the books. You can't sleep at night if you didn't see what was behind that locked door. You listen very closely to the DM's descriptions of environments and rooms and are ready to follow up on anything that catches your attention. You're the first one to ask, what do they have on them after a fight? It just doesn't feel satisfying to walk away from a hard-earned victory without thoroughly looting the bodies for treasure, gear, or anything remotely interesting. To you, every encounter is an opportunity to find something new, whether it's a rare weapon, a handful of gold, or a clue to some deeper secret. You're the player who lives for a good lore dump. When the DM starts describing the ancient history of a forgotten temple or the intricate carvings on a mysterious obelisk, you're hanging on every word. No detail is too small to matter, and you're excited to dive into every unique area or bit of backstory. Explorer types have a lot of crossover with problem solver types. Dungeon masters who run games for explorers need to keep their random loot tables close at hand and be wary of accidentally over-describing any unimportant details, unless they're ready for that one suspicious curtain to spawn multiple investigation checks. Up Up next is the fighter, but wait, hold your action. We can't roll initiative until we hear from today's sponsor.
Hey, how's the mini painting going? Not good, darling. In fact, I quit. I'm not painting minis for you anymore.
Wait, what? But I need your help. You have such tiny little hands, it's easy for you.
Yeah, well, it's really cutting into my sipping on dewdrops and sliding down sunbeams time. You're just gonna have to figure it out.
But I can't do it myself. No matter what brush I use, it always looks like I painted with a mop. What am I supposed to do now?
Calm down, drama queen. You don't have to paint anything. Why don't you just pledge to Eldritch Foundry's new Kickstarter? You can make your color choices online and get minis printed in full color, no pixies required.
What, like I just pick the colors and they print them?
Oh, honey, it goes way past color picking. They have this fancy new Prism color engine. It's a full-blown painting simulator. You can mimic brush strokes, painting techniques, and even different brush types like dry brushing or washes. And then bam, printed in perfect detail and delivered to your door. You can create something beautiful, even with your big old human mitts.
Okay, fine, I'll go pledge on Kickstarter, but only because it sounds awesome. We are still gonna talk about this.
Later, sweet pea. It's almost time for dancing on the head of a dandelion, and I cannot keep canceling that.
Welcome back. It's time for the fighter, the adrenaline junkie, the party's resident action hero. Fighters are just waiting for their DM to whisper those 3 sweet little words in their ear. Roll for initiative. They picked out those damage-dealing abilities on their character sheet on purpose, and they are damn sure gonna use them. Why sneak, negotiate, or investigate when you have a big ol' sword that can do the job more efficiently? What, you were expecting a "that's why I always carry a sword" joke right there? You insult me. That's so obvious. It's gonna be way more unexpected than that. If you relate to any of these things, you might be a fighter. You love combat, and you're here for the high of rolling big damage, scoring crits, and landing that killer final blow. You don't just want to hear your DM say "you hit," you want them to make you feel like Legolas skateboarding down the stairs on a shield while he mows down a half-dozen orcs. In your ideal game, no session ends without at least one solid fight. You enjoy the thrill of encounters where there's no question about the enemy's intentions. Undead, monstrosities, creatures that obviously can't be talked down. There's something deeply satisfying to you about facing a clear-cut, beat the crap out of them kind of opponent. You get a little restless when other players exchange verbal jabs with a villain that you're gonna end up fighting anyway. Sometimes you feel the urge to just attack mid-monologue and save everyone the hassle. You might, on occasion, indulge in a little eye-rolling if the druid tries to use speak with animals on the direwolves when you're already in initiative order. Fighters often have a lot of overlap with instigators and optimizers. They're all about making things happen and doing it with maximum impact. But there can be a little tension when fighters share a table with players who prefer a more diplomatic approach. And running a satisfying game for both types of players can be a balancing act for the Dungeon Master. Our next type is the Instigator, the party's chaos engine, your very own Leroy Jenkins. Some of you are too young for that reference, but it's gonna kill with the 30 to 40 demographic, trust me. Instigators aren't just here to sit back and observe a story. They're here to stir things up, and they want to see the effects of that on the world. Instigators thrive on action, even if it means taking risks that could land the whole party in hot water. So how do you know if you're an instigator? Here are a few telltale signs. For you, being bold and taking risks isn't just acceptable, it's essential. Planning and caution are for real life. At the game table, you're here to be a bold hero, taking big swings and seeing what happens. If you wanted to play it safe, your character wouldn't be dungeon crawling. They'd be working a stable desk job and making regular contributions to their 401k. You don't mind facing negative consequences. In fact, the game isn't nearly as fun for you without real stakes. Taking big risks means things could either go really well or really wrong, but that's what makes it exciting. The payoff, or even the failure, is what keeps things dramatic and unpredictable. It's crucial that your choices and actions matter in the world. You don't want to be a fly on the wall in an epic fantasy story, you want to be a main character, driving the plot. If you just wanted to watch things happen, you'd be at the movie theater, not the game table. Instigators often have overlap with fighters, and sometimes with explorers. Problem solvers who love to plan and strategize can be tough table mates for instigators, who may feel impatient when planning gets in the way of playing. Meanwhile, problem solvers can feel like the instigator is rushing in or derailing the game. Dungeon masters with instigators in the party need to be ready for anything. If you describe a hornet's nest, you'd better have the stat block for swarm of wasps on hand, because your instigator is definitely gonna poke it. Next on the list is the optimizer, otherwise known as the min-maxer. This is the player who knows the rulebook better than the dungeon master. This is the type of player that scares me. Seriously, they're so scary. Please don't make me DM for them. Optimizers love to fine-tune every aspect of their character for peak efficiency. They're gonna stack the perfect combination of feats and abilities and prove that encounter balancing tools are no match for somebody with a hyperfixation and a Reddit account. This is one of the most commonly discussed player types in D&D, so you probably already know if you're an optimizer. But just in case, here are some signs. You've perfected your character build, making sure every ability score, feat, and spell choice works in absolute harmony. You probably know what choices you'll be making for the next few levels too. Whether it's combat, exploration, or ensuring that you will never fail another dexterity save in your life, you're making sure your character is the very best at something. You love it when your character gets to show off their abilities. That might be dealing crazy damage numbers, or it might be the pure joy of telling your DM that you rolled a 38 stealth. You live for those moments when your careful planning pays off. Magic items aren't just cool loot for you, they're tools with very specific purposes. One particular weapon or ring might be an important puzzle piece in your build, and having the opportunity to track it down and get a hold of it sounds like a fun and engaging quest for you. Optimizers can have overlap with fighters, but don't get it twisted, they are not the same thing. Where a fighter might love a cinematic description of their heroic moves, the optimizer might be perfectly happy with you deal X points of damage as long as number go up. And of course, you can optimize for things other than combat. They might build a social powerhouse and max out charisma. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're interested in acting out their intimidation or persuasion though. They may feel like the dice already have that covered. Next up, we have the problem solver, the player who treats every D&D session like a murder mystery dinner party but with dice. These players are excited to think their way out of every situation, whether that's guessing which innocent-seeming NPC is secretly the big bad, or devising a foolproof 14-step plan to avoid combat entirely. For a problem solver, D&D is a fantasy-flavored strategy game. Here are a few clues that you might be a problem solver. You love solving puzzles. You don't mind sitting there at the table, working out a letter substitution code, or piecing together a cryptic riddle in real time. You've probably got a New York Times game subscription, and your 325-day Wordle streak has prepared you for anything. When talking to NPCs, you're the first one to call for an insight check. It doesn't matter if you're chatting with a suspicious guardsman or a little girl looking for her lost puppy. If something is off, you're gonna find out about it. For you, every conversation is an opportunity to learn something new or connect some more dots. Whether it's combat or negotiation, you want a solid plan in place before anybody rolls a single die. You don't mind if half the session is spent strategizing, especially if it leads to using Qual's feather token to completely derail the encounter in the most legendary way possible. Problem solvers have a lot of crossover with explorers, but they can clash with instigators, who tend to get bored when plans take too long to form, and with fighters, who might struggle when a problem solver does their very best to avoid rolling initiative at all. Problem solvers who love picking apart NPC motivations will often mesh well with actors and storytellers. And before you say it, no, I'm not gonna make a joke about my sword being my favorite problem solver. Stop trying to predict it, just let me cook. It's time to talk about the storyteller, the player who isn't here for some low-stakes monster of the week stuff, but for the long-form, award-winning drama of a Game of Thrones style epic. They want plot twists, character arcs, emotional stakes, the kind of game they'll swear they're gonna turn into a novel someday. Seriously, they're gonna start writing it any day now. Here are 3 signs that you might be a storyteller. You're motivated less by loot and experience points and more by narrative impact. If given the choice between slaying a dragon to get a hoard of treasure or slaying a dragon to save the innocent townsfolk it's threatening, you'll choose going down in history as the savior of the kingdom every time. You love it when pieces of your character's backstory turn up in the plot. It makes you feel like your character isn't just another interchangeable adventurer, but a core part of the story. The moment the DM hints that your long-lost sibling or ancient enemy is involved, you are 100% in. You knew writing that 3-page backstory would pay off someday. You have trouble getting invested in encounters that feel random or disconnected from the plot. You're all about battles that have real stakes for the story, where you know exactly what's on the line and how it ties into the larger narrative. If the fight doesn't push the story forward, it's hard for you to care much about the outcome. This type of player might have some tension at the table with instigators, who they might see as playing fast and loose with the larger narrative arc. Storytellers often have a lot in common with actors, but where actors are focused on embodying their character in the moment, storytellers are thinking about the bigger picture. There are players who are both actors and storytellers, but it's also totally possible to be one without being the other. Okay, those were all the player types listed in the 2014 Dungeon Master's Guide, but the 2024 version has given us one more option, the Socializer. Let's be honest, if you're watching a video like this on a channel like mine, you're probably not in this category. Socializers come to the table primarily to hang out with their friends and enjoy the social aspect of game night. They're not super invested in the rules, the story, or the characters, even their own. Basically, they're just happy to be here. As long as they're not being disruptive to the rest of the group, that's fine. Not every player needs to be passionate about the game. But if a socializer is distracting other players or pulling focus from the game, or if their casual approach makes other players feel self-conscious about being emotional or getting immersed, then it's possible that they're not the best fit for this particular group. In my experience, actors, storytellers, and optimizers are the most likely to be put off by having a socializer hanging around. I mean, that's why I always carry a sword. For those filthy casuals. You know, for a long time, I was one of those people who described myself as enjoying a mix of combat and role-playing, but I kept having these experiences where everyone at the table would agree about that, and then once we started playing, the disconnect between us would just become so obvious. Reading this section of the Dungeon Master's Guide really helped me understand why that was happening. Not because I'm a Gemini and Mercury was on rollerblades, but because we had very different goals for the game and didn't even know it. In reality, I like acting, problem solving, and storytelling. And to be honest, I can be a little bit of an instigator sometimes. I don't have beef with optimizers, but we don't complement each other very well in combat. And in the past, it's been a little frustrating to me to share a table with socializers. Although, to be fair, I'm sure taking 1d10 slashing damage isn't a walk in the park for them either. As a player, learning all this about myself has helped me understand why some groups haven't been as fun for me as I'd hoped. And as a dungeon master, this is exactly the kind of information that would help me not just run a great game, but put together the right group in the first place. This has quickly become an essential part of my Session Zero. Also, speaking of Session Zero, it's never too late to have one, and they can save your group all kinds of conflicts that could end your campaign. So make sure to check out this video next to learn more.